Everyone. We are the Restoration Rangers Consulting Company, and we specialize in the restoration of degraded arid ecosystems. Now, we were hired by the Chinese government to both assess and explore, as well as strategize solutions for restoring degraded arid ecosystems in the Gansu province of China. The context of our presentation is that we are meeting with the government to explain the types of sites, as well as detailing the main methods for achieving restoration at these sites. Now, before we begin, we want to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe nations. As well, we would like to bring your attention to the glossary we've provided that you have reference to throughout the presentation, as well as to check out our website. Now, our presentation is going to consist of an introduction, outline of solutions, interview with experts, integrations with other groups, division of work, and finally, works cited. Now, our main research questions that we'll be talking about or looking at are what are the negative anthropogenic factors that we have contributed to degradation in arid ecosystems. We won't be talking about this one today as we've already addressed this in earlier meetings, but we do want to talk about the specific solutions for restoring degraded arid ecosystems, as well as what the most effective methods and measurements to ensure short and long-term success are for restoration of arid ecosystems.
So as some of you may not know, the Gansu province is located in northwest China, indicated in red on the map to the right. This area is home to the Oasis region, an extremely fragile ecological environment surrounded by the Gobi Desert. Urbanization and agriculture are prominent in this area, and this is making ecological security a major concern. The Gansu province is also home to the Loess Plateau, an area considered to be one of the most eroded regions in the world. Because of the importance to restoring areas like these, many restoration projects have been underway, like the Great Green Wall of China, a mass afforestation effort that is meant to hold back the expansion of the Gobi Desert. However, because it is such a large-scale project, monocultures were planted instead of more diverse species, which is affecting the stability of the ecosystem. Also, many of the trees that have survived are requiring more water than the ecosystem can maintain, and the native grasses and shrubs are dying off, causing more soil degradation. Our team are going to build on projects like this one to successfully restore the degraded lands back to their natural habitats.
So now we'll be talking about the strategies, and we'll first start off with the policies. Across northwestern China, the main drivers of desertification include overgrazing by livestock, excessive mining, and exploited water resources. We want to consider these specific activities when making recommendations for policy responses. When developing our policy responses, we first want to focus on decreasing livestock grazing. As you may know, dryland degradation caused by overgrazing is one of the most prevalent causes of desertification in China. Because overgrazing of grasslands is still an ongoing issue, we want to further strengthen the enforcement of these limits. Secondly, we want to focus on mining site reclamation. Such a policy has been implemented in other parts of the world, including Canada. This policy will involve the restoration of mining sites and ensuring its long-term maintenance. The third thing that we want to focus on is investing in irrigation. This will involve improving efficiency of water management through improved planning of irrigation systems and methods. When developing and improving irrigation, we could also implement more renewable energy technologies. Finally, the Grain for Green program is a restoration project that was first launched in 1999. As you may know too, the goal of this program was to restore ecosystems by turning croplands into forests and grasslands. Over the years, this restoration project has shown positive results with an increase in soil organic carbon. For this reason, we would like to further expand afforestation and grassland in the Gansu region. Overall, the legislation, which falls under implementation measures for desertification prevention and control, will allow these policies to be developed and implemented.
Now, when we are developing the appropriate solutions to specific dryland sites, we must take into consideration the factors that influence our choices, as well as addressing the goals in our mind to bring ecosystems back to undisturbed states. One case is with afforestation, the establishment of forested trees in areas that there was no previous tree cover. This solution will only be effective if there is a reliable source of water and nutrients on this site. We can use pioneer species of trees such as black locusts, and they are used to create an established population in abandoned or other degraded areas. This can be used in sites in China to contribute to the global greening of an area to reestablish primary productivity of an ecosystem. But it's also important to have proper land management and maintain regional water security on these sites. The arid climates of the Gobi Desert, for instance, must be analyzed and evaluated to address the changes to the water cycle, as well as hydrological feedback to avoid further damages. Now, biological soil crusts are also another effective restoration technique that can be implemented on sites, since they act as a first line of defense against soil erosion. They can be implemented in soils where there are nutrient imbalances. And moreover, we have some strategies in place that we recommend to protect topsoils from further erosion, using nitrogen-fixing cyanobacteria, and as well as moss-dominated forms of biocrusts. The cyanobacteria in the moss species can be utilized as special inoculants for restoration purposes, since placing these strains has shown to improve soil quality, soil fertility, and reduce harmful eroding components. Our biocrust sites aim to incorporate what's known as biological loess crusts, or BLCs, to improve restoration of exposed surfaces on the Loess Plateau that are mainly comprised of clay and sand. It is also suggested that specific sites in the Gansu province that contain vascular plants can interact with the biocrust layers, and this sort of interface will positively alter the landscape and exist as a stable state. The diagram shows over here, the diagram shows phases of influencing biocrusts in arid regions. And we think that this is one of the best methods for combating land degradation. Now, vegetation is also another widely used solution to restore areas in drylands that are depleted in nutrient levels or areas that need more hydrological stimulations. The process of our vegetation involves bringing in shrubs, grassland, and other plant species to an area that has previously been disturbed at some sort of soil level. This helps to increase biodiversity, to improve water filtration, and as well as decreasing soil erosion. There's an emerging dryland restoration framework analysis known as RestoreNet. Our group will be trying to implement this to test the viability of treatments to ensure successful revegetation. These include connectivity modifiers for plant structures, mulch enrichment of the soil, and as well as digging pits within the soil to improve hydrology. More importantly, when viewed from a Loess Plateau case study, vegetation under the Grain to Green program has improved net productivity and decreased topsoil erosion. We must synthesize the background RestoreNet practices and incorporate vegetation strains to ensure improved soil productivity. Now, in addition to these previous 3 site classifications, our research group is looking into a 4th site, the plausibility of combining the uses of biocrusts as well as vegetation combined. Although physical research remains a bit inconclusive on its effectiveness, there are a variety of factors that must be considered, including the size, shape, and dispersal patterns of plant seedlings, as well as the biocrust density and thickness. This can help to dictate the roles in ecological interactions. Moreover, the success rate of these sites will be looking into the seeding patterns that we will incorporate. This will help to determine to us if such an approach of restoration is ecologically sound as well as economically feasible given degrees of degradation.
Now, it is important that we monitor for short and long-term success. An accurate and affordable monitoring strategy is using unmanned drone imagery and assessing that using remote sensing to look for plant cover of both forest and vegetation, as this is an indication of success when we see increased extent. Now, additionally, important indices that we will be measuring using field surveys is assessing variables related to composition, function, and structure of both forests as well as individual trees. As well, we will be using field surveys with regards to vegetation to determine the ecological index of maturity, or EIM. And this uses the degree of maturity of a succession, the choriotype, as well as the coverage of each species to tell us if the ecosystem has been disturbed or altered after restoration, and therefore whether restoration has been successful. Furthermore, we will be assessing species richness of both plants as well as arthropods to determine success. If both plant and arthropod assemblages are moving towards those of target native species with time, we assume that we are moving in the direction of success. Now, with regards to biocrust, there are many methods for monitoring, but the ones we will be focusing on are the chain, soil core, and hand-led methods. So the chain method uses a measure of soil surface roughness. Now, biocrust promotes surface roughness, so the bumpier the surface, the better. As well, we'll be looking at soil cores from each site and assessing for chlorophyll A. Now, the higher concentrations of chlorophyll A indicate healthier biocrusts. And finally, we will be looking at hand lens samples, as we are actually able to see biocrust communities using a hand lens. So the higher variety of taxa that we find indicates the more mature biocrusts, and therefore the more maturity, the more successful the project. As well, our team has had the opportunity and pleasure to meet with several experts in the field. And one of those includes Dr. Anita Antonica, who is the principal investigator for the Forest Rangeland Soil Ecological Lab in Arizona University. Now, we discussed several things, beginning with some of the focuses of her research, including dryland ecosystems, and she has a wide range of knowledge pertaining to restoration ecology, with special focus on cultivation and inoculation of biocrust communities. Now, she reminds us that biocrusts are our first line of defense in combating soil erosion in both deserts and dryland ecosystems. Now, Anita discussed the benefits and viability of incorporating both biocrusts and vegetation at the same site, as this is still very highly variable and we do have a lot to learn. But she does believe that her lab has cultivated a method that can improve success rates. And this includes combining a mixture of both crumbled biocrust inoculum and combining that with both a binder as well as seeds, as this can create ideal conditions for seed germination, as there are extra nutrients, increased soil moisture, and greater protection from seed predation. And we plan to test this method at our hybrid site and monitor for success. Now, the other thing we were able to gain from our discussion with Anita is where we will be harvesting our biocrusts. Now, as we know, mine sites are already going to be disturbing the land and resources will otherwise be wasted. So we will be harvesting both biocrust and topsoil from these future sites and using them at our restoration sites.
Now, another expert that we have interviewed is Dr. Caroline Havrilla, the primary investigator for our Dryland Ecology Lab and is also an assistant professor of rangeland ecology and management at Colorado State University. Here's her contact information. Now, her line of expertise analyzes the incorporation of biotic controls, global climate, and ecological restoration measures that help to shape patterns of biodiversity and ecosystem function across drylands. Her work with the RestoreNet framework seeks to find solutions at small-scale microcosms through improving overall soil health. She stressed to our group that one of the largest ecological barriers to overcome is the access of adequate water and nutrient levels to ensure that biocrusts, vegetation, and afforestation can work in drylands. She further suggested small-scale solutions to our group, such as incorporating seed balls, which introduce native plant seedlings and soil materials, mulch enhancers to improve plant vitality and productivity, as well as microbial inoculations in dryland soils. These ideas yield promising results in field settings of reintroducing vital minerals back into the soils. With regards to policies, her work goes hand in hand with land managers, and our goal is to give lawmakers and government officials, such as yourselves, the necessary information to decide which restoration methods are best suitable for specific regions of the Gansu province, and we'll be in close contact with her.
So we've put together this integration map to show how other ecology groups are able to impact us and vice versa. The circles closest to the restoration rangers were found to have considerable connections with us. So that would be biotechnics and bees. And then groups that we found it more difficult to connect with are farther away. We've also put together a detailed map outlining the specific connections that we were able to make with each group. Now, this is a lot of information, but it is on our website, so you can check it out there if you're interested. So we were able to collaborate with two groups in specific, biotechnics and bees. So in terms of Team Biotechnics, their research shows that increasing populations have put a strain on food production demands, which is causing land degradation. They've explored the use of PGPR enrichment in fertilizer, which would increase soil equality and crop yield. Implementing these techniques could reduce the amount of land converted for agriculture and actually lead to land being converted back to their natural environments. We've also found that increased consumption of meat alternatives would cut down on the agriculture demands, reducing overgrazing from farm animals. This would also cause a decrease in greenhouse gas emissions, which would mitigate the effects of climate change that are drying arid regions. So in terms of Team Bees, dust storms caused by soil erosion in degraded lands actually contribute to particulate matter found in urban areas. We've also found that a potential relationship between air pollution and increased aggression in monkeys. Therefore, if arid regions were restored, dust storms would be reduced, and that would lead to less air pollution in urban areas to impact animal behavior. Another connection we were able to make is the use of vegetation. Where they use it in urban areas to reduce heat island effect, we use it as an effective restoration strategy. Vegetation will improve soil stability, reducing the risk of dust storms, decreasing air pollution in affected urban areas to potentially improve animal behavior.
As for the division of work regarding this presentation, we believe that each of us was able to contribute equally, and here are some of the main contributions that each member had. We also divided the citations based on the different parts of the presentation. You can see here the glossary, the introduction, solutions, and all the other parts. And lastly, the results of our survey are up on the website if you want to check that out. And that concludes our presentation, and we look forward to working with you in the future.